Do not be swayed with the wind and learn how to stay on business. The biggest thing when you are living your life, especially at a young age, is we have so many, especially now when we have TikTok, YouTube, this, blah, blah, blah. We have so many things that are influences on what we do in our life, how we live our life. And not only social media, but your family, friends, your partner, your everybody is doing something different. So, how can you learn to actually stay on the path that you're on and do it at your pace without feeling like you are being drifted through the wind with everyone else's ideas? And that really is where self trust comes in. And self trust is built when you decide that you want to do something, and instead of, you know, taking anybody else's ideas, you stick to what you already said you were going to do. This doesn't mean you can't add to it. You can definitely add to it over time and make it so that it's a lot more kind of just like updated and modern. You shouldn't have to not do something for your goals because it seems like your original plan is better. Okay, I'm going to explain this in a deeper term. If you are an adult, you're 25 and you decided, hey, I want to have this specific life for myself and I'm going to do it in this specific way. It's amazing and commendable and quite frankly, rare that you're one of the people that put your foot down, stood on business, got to your goals, and did what you wanted to do. But self trust, but you got there because of self trust. You got there because you trusted yourself to take the path that you were supposed to take. And you trusted yourself to continue on the path, even when it looked like it wasn't working, to continue on the path that you chose because you understand the grass is only greener where you water it. The grass is only going to be greener where you water it. The grass is only going to grow where you maintain it. And you can't just go to the other side of the pasture and just assume, okay, this grass is green. Great, now I have green grass because like I talked about in yesterday's video, you have to do the hard work to maintain that once you get there. Okay. So it's not just an easy pass. The video was titled Passive Income Scam, and I went deep into that video. That's a really good video. You guys should all watch. And the other part about this is that it's really hard once you stop thinking like that and you stop thinking like from being swayed in the wind to establishing your self trust because you will notice how much influence there actually is. And it's so crazy because you'll go from just like being swayed in the wind, not really realizing how much lack of control you don't have. Like, you don't have any control over your life, your decisions, what you want to do. Like, you tell yourself you're going to do one thing, stick to this one thing, or ride out the wave of this one thing. And as soon as your friend comes around with a business idea, or your mom comes around with a different idea, or your sister recommends you do something else with your time and energy, you're like, oh no, I gotta go do that thing. And you see it even worse as a sign. You start saying, like, well, I was thinking about not doing what I'm currently doing. And then they came along, so it must be a sign. Signs will lead you to the detriment of your entire life because anything can be a sign. Again, that doesn't align with having self trust because if you had self trust, you would be able to not have to take things as signs. You wouldn't have to need a sign, right? Because if I told myself I'm going to get to a specific destination and I'm going to do it through this specific way, allowing the modification and the evolution over time, but really staying true to what I said I was going to do, I wouldn't care about signs. I'd be like, oh, I'm not going to take that as a sign because I don't really know what that is. I don't trust in that thing. I am not going to put luck and assumptions onto that thing. I'm just going to do what I need to do. And that's really where it kind of all lights up the path for you. So, a really great exercise you can do, or even journaling to do to figure out what you want to do as far as self trust. And you guys know that I'm currently sick. So, I am still weathering through it. I'm going to give you the things for the self trust to do, but I want to talk about this first. Your gifts that God gave you are the thing that are going to things or thing that is going to heal you. Okay. So when you're sick and you tell yourself, I'm not going to the gym, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to make the YouTube videos I normally make, I'm not going to go post on TikTok, I don't feel well, I'm not going to do those things. Realize that you also don't have self trust. Because if you trusted yourself that the TikTok was going to work, the YouTube was going to work, the business idea was going to work, you would work on it regardless of how you felt, because you would know there's an underlying goal that you're trying to get to. And you would say, I mean, it's easy to say, oh, I'm not going to show up because nobody's going to be there anyways. And I also don't feel good. So I'm taking it as a sign to not film today. Like, it's really easy to do that. But when you have established self trust in the thing that you want to do, you have concrete, set in stone, that desire that you want. It doesn't have a choice whether you're going to get that thing or not. So staying true to your actual desires while you have these different signs, like being sick or not feeling like it, or should I change, or whatever, or all these influences. If you stick true through that and you actually go through an entire, people are normally sick for like a week. You go through 7 days of being sick and still showing up on social media, showing up in your business, showing up with your family, showing up with all your responsibilities and things that you've already set as your goals. If you do all that while sick, do you understand that once you're not sick anymore, you'll be 10x stronger, or technically 7x, because you get 1% better every day? You'll be 7x. Now, I don't really know about you, but I would much rather be 7x what I'm currently right now in a week than to use sickness as an excuse and get, time's going to pass anyways, and I end up being 3x better, 2x better. I am going to take every single chance, every single day, every single second, every single opportunity I have to use the gift that I was given and talk about the things that I was called to talk about as one of my goals. And so I just want to say that to encourage you. If you ever feel like you don't want to do something, refer back to your self trust and say, does this align with the self trust? Now, if your self trust is based on self care, um, paying attention to yourself, taking really deep care of your body over anything, um, and your actual 3D desires aren't on that self trust list, then you're free to do whatever you want. Because you may be pursuing social media or YouTube or TikTok or Instagram on the side, and you don't, it's not your main destination point, right? So um when you get the idea of like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, then you just don't have to, and that's fine. But that's why it's important to have the list of things that you want done in your life. Because whether you like it or not, time's gonna pass. Because this is pissing me off. Whether you like it or not, time is gonna pass, and that's why it's important to use your time wisely. So the very first thing is to pick your goal or desire. And actually, that's not first. The first thing is to pick your spiritual bias. Now, some people are Christian, some people are Catholic, some people are Lutheran, some people are whatever you are. Bless your heart, doesn't really matter to me. Um, but if you believe, let's just say you believe in God, everything else goes under that. And the reason why you pick your source first and the thing that you believe in is because it's the thing higher, bigger than you. So I talked about this in my um, self, I think it was a what was that video even called? Self satiation, where I talked about self soothing. There we go. And how you're using food. It was like an hour long live stream. And I talked about how food really is doing you a misjustice in trying to self soothe you because it's actually a trap. And if your decisions are being based off of you, a human who has self-soothing and self-satiation tendencies, what do you think your decisions are going to lead you to? They're going to lead you to self-satiation, temporary pleasure, temporary temporary everything, because that's how we act as humans. So if you can make this entire list and framework and structure within your life of the things that you trust and the things you really hold firm in, your beliefs, then when different ideas come around, you will not be tempted to do them. You won't be tempted to partake or participate because you know that it doesn't align with who you are, your beliefs, or anything like that. And the great part about this is that when you have a specific source, all the things you think you may not be able to do under that pretense, you might still be able to do. So that was my hesitation was like, okay, if I have this list of things under this self trust document, how would I know? How would I know what I can and can't do? And then when I kind of implemented the list, I realized that I get to choose everything else on the list. And so it's you're not taking anything away from yourself by doing a self trust assessment on your life. It's only going to make you stronger. So pick a source, pick a pick your God, the higher power you believe in, the one thing that you believe in, because that thing already has principles and values and morals and ethical standards. And it's really easy to operate your life based off standards that were already made to work together. So when you aren't operating from a source, you on your own have to come up with your own moral standard, your own uh your own code of standard, your own values, principles, beliefs, all that. And it's really difficult to do that on your own because you are not bigger than you. You're a human. So you have to choose something that is intangible, like a belief in something, a faith in something. Okay. So have faith in one particular thing, source, or principle that is going to guide you through your life. So ready to make another a decision, and I want to know if it's going to be based on my self trust and build me towards my goals. I can say, would I be doing this if as a person who believes in whatever? And if I am, if it checks the box, which most of the time it does, then you're good. The second thing is to actually choose the desire. So the desire is the thing that you want. So financial freedom, family, to be married, blah 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 blah. Now, when you write these things down, choose four things and then choose four non negotiables under each. So, for instance, with the marriage, one of your non negotiables would be I'm never going to not date, right? You're going to make it an intention to go out on dates because how will you get married if you don't go out and meet people? And even if you go out and meet people, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll meet your husband that way. But it does mean that you're going to get to know more people, have more experience, and it's a benefit overall. So choose things that align with that. Like, what are you okay with doing? What are your standards? What are your goals for that goal? Like your sub goals for that goal. So that could be dating, only dating people in a certain age group, only dating XYZ certain person. So that when you like, how do you know you trust yourself when you're dating? Because you're on a date, you accepted a date that you're okay with being on, you accepted a date with the person you're okay being with, you accepted a date with the person who you actually like, and that fits your what you're looking for in a husband or a wife. It doesn't make sense to say that you want to be provided for or to be taken care of, but you're dating people that are way too young to do that. That means you don't have good self trust. And this was my own personal story. Is that I kept dating people my age and ignoring all the people who are older. And then I'm like not getting what I want from a relationship with a relationship. Um, and there's extreme nuance to this. So I'm just giving the top layer. But just as an example, right, without providing the context, you're doing something that doesn't align with what you want. So it's like you want to marry a man, but you only date women. Does that make sense? No. You want to have a partner who is really well off and successful, but you're only dating people that don't have jobs. Does that make sense? No. You really, really, really don't want to marry somebody with short hair, but you only date people with short hair. It doesn't make sense. So you have to make choices that make sense so that when you go on these dates and you start to experience people, you can actually have trust in yourself that you're dating the right people. Same thing with everything, like with your job. You can have a self trust standard that you're only going to have a job that pays you $50,000 a year. And so when you get the job offer for $49,000, you're going to tell them no. Because what happens with when we don't operate on self-trust is we our boundaries are very flexible and we seem desperate. It's like the self-trust standard. And when I say self-trust, I simply mean like doing what you said you're going to do and making decisions that align with that thing. So if you say like if you say you want one thing, you better be doing what aligns with doing that thing and nothing other than that. So if you want to be really successful in school, but you don't study at all, like is anybody home? Like there's nobody there's nobody up here. Because if somebody was home, it would click. And you would say, you know what, that doesn't actually make sense. Let me actually do what I need to do. So it just puts your head on your shoulders. And self-trust is so important because when you're older and you start to have to make decisions, I mean like when you turn 20, you're going to have to make so many decisions and your parents aren't going to make them for you because you're an adult. So you get to call them and say, hey, I have a question. Hey, I have a concern. What do you think about this? But they can't make decisions for you. And if I was 20 and I went and I made this self trust list, I would be in such a better place. Um, the younger you do it, the better off you are because you're going to start making decisions immediately. Like it's immediate. You're going to start making decisions for what you're currently doing, you want to do, or anything like that based off of a life that you actually want to live. So from like 20 to now, I was making decisions, but I didn't have like a standard of things to make decisions off of. But now that I have a certain goal in life, which is not going to be shared, since I have certain goals, I know what decisions to make and it makes it a lot easier on me. So when I'm working on something, doing something, and I share something with a friend and they give an opinion on it, or a parent gives an opinion on it, I don't feel swayed. I don't feel like, oh my gosh, I need to like, I need to do this other thing they're telling me to do because they make it sound so good. Like it's really hard to be persuaded when you have your feet in the sand. And your feet in the sand comes from self trust. You have to trust in what you're doing. You have to trust in what you said you were going to do and trust in the process that you set for yourself. And stop taking signs as signs because signs, anything could be a sign. Like you can say, I want to be a YouTuber, I want to be a YouTuber. But you get on your computer to film a video one day and the computer isn't working. You say, this is a sign that I shouldn't film a video. How about you just restart the computer and go start your live? How about you just restart the phone and re-film the video? Like, because when the other thing about this is that when you're getting your desire, it's not always going to work out the first time. And so if you have this level of self-trust that you're like, okay, regardless of what happens, regardless of what I'm shown, I'm still going to keep going for my desire, right? So if you want to be a YouTuber, when your computer doesn't work, you're not going to be like, this is a sign I shouldn't do it. Because it's going to happen. You turn on your computer and it doesn't want to log into YouTube. Or you turn on your computer and you get an email about something else is wrong. And so you have to go do something else or something unrelated and try to come back later, right? You're going to be distracted. You're going to be, um, you're going to have other things that are seemingly more important at that time. You're going to have times where you turn on the live stream video and it's telling you there is no webcam connected when you're literally sitting in front of the computer with the webcam right there. There's going to always be things in the road, there's always going to be obstacles. But if you have self trust and the fact that you said you were going to do YouTube, then every single day you're going to get up and you're going to film a video, you're going to put yourself out there, and you're not going to care about what's happening. You're not going to care if nobody's there. You're not going to care if you're not currently making any money from it. You're not going to care if you had to restart the video 10 times. You're not going to care if you had to post about it on a different social media to try to get more traction. You're not going to care what it takes to get there. And it's going to put your head on your shoulders with decisions that you should be making. And this is really good for all things. And the one thing that is also good about this is that when you have a self trust standard, self trust, like you can make it a document, you can make it like a list, you can make it just write it out, literally, this self trust thing, and that you are going to, um, that you're going to do when you're going to make decisions. It doesn't matter if it's about relationship, about money, about your parents, about whatever. They're all going to fall beautifully under this list of self trust standards you have for yourself and what you said you're going to do. So if your parents piss you off, but you have a self trust standard that family is important and you're going to do whatever it takes to stay connected to them, okay, your decision has been made for you. You don't get the choice to not talk to them because that was part of your standard. So be careful what you put in your standard. And then also it helps you to make decisions during your hard times, right? Because if you're having a really hard time trying to do something or talk to someone, then in your family, but your self-trust standard says that you're gonna do it, it makes it a lot easier to actually do it because you have previously already set in stone the standards and the rules for yourself. It's like a rule book for your own self. I might retitle the video, rule book for your own self. The other thing is that when you want to regress, oof, this should be a whole video by itself. When you want to regress to a past relationship, a past job, a past friend, a past hobby, a past habit, when you want to regress to the past, your self trust list is not going to let you do it. Isn't that beautiful? So that when you want to move on from something and you actually are in like, because when you move on from something, you have a lot of, you have a lot of like energy about it. You're like, I can't wait to leave. I can't wait to do, I can't wait to, right? And like your energy is high. You're like, yes, yes, yes. And then a month after you make that decision, you might be like, I regret this. My life is so much harder. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I made the right decision. Should I go back? Oh my gosh, I don't know. I need to go back. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna survive. And you just can't see your life in a new way because you're so used to it being with that old thing in your life. Okay. So when that old thing is in your life, you know what life looks like because it's so normal to you. It's so like so something you've dealt with for so long. And you're like, why can't I go back? Well, what happens when you go back is you break self-trust because you are supposed to be moving towards a goal. And that goal can it can. This is another sign, right? Another sign. It very much can, very much can help you get to your goal. If you go back to that person, go back to that job, go back to whatever, you can make excuses for literally anything. Okay. But when you have that self trust in place, and your feet are firm in the sand, you're not going to need or want to go back because you're going to understand that there's so much better ahead of you. And so if you are constantly, this is good for people that are constantly regressing. They like leave a job but want to go back to it a month later. Leave a person, want to go back to them a month later. Leave a friend, want to go back to them a month later. Do you understand that by leaving that thing, you opened up room for the best possible replacement? And if you were to just stick it out for a month, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 8 weeks, something's going to drop in that place. And you will feel stupid, dumb, and idiotic when instead of waiting to let something new, better, bigger drop into that space, you go back to wherever you came from to try to accomplish goals in the future. Does that sound like that makes sense? If you want to have a certain life and you're like, well, if I go back to the job, I'll be able to have that life faster. I see it now. I see it now. Like it's clearer. I understand. I understand that I shouldn't have left that thing because now I know that it actually gets me closer to my goal. The point of leaving the thing was not so that you can regret it and go back. It was so that you can actually know where you want to go in life. And by making the decision to leave something, you've clearly stated your position. You've clearly stated your position. You're like, I don't care what that is. That feels like it's holding me back. And I want to move forward. But anything can be used to help you. Anything can be used for that excuse. So you can literally use the excuse of anything to go back. Stop going back. It's pathetic. It is pathetic. And that's why you need the self trust in you. Because do you know, oh my gosh, in comparison to having a friend group you don't want, cutting them all off, and then a month later being like, I have no friends, I want to go back. You go back to those same raggedy friends that you don't like, even if they're not bad people, you just don't resonate with them anymore, right? Versus you're friendless, lonely for a month, 2 months. But then you get the best possible friend group who's so supportive and aligns directly with who you are as a person. Which one feels better? The fact that you now have the friends, but you got like you now fill the void with the old friends, but you were only doing that because you were in a lack mindset versus you waiting and being lonely. So on the one side, you're lonely, you stop being lonely now and you have the old friends. Or you stop being lonely later and you have friends that actually benefit your life, who you are, and help you grow as a person, help you evolve, help you be better. They pray for you, they love on you, they're supportive. You can share your wins, you can talk about your real life. Do you see how much better that is? Like, You're giving up all this beautiful, juicy relationship that you could be having for the simple satisfaction, self satiation of having friends now. Do you understand how that actually is a detriment? So when you make decisions based off one standard of self trust, not based on self soothing. Put your standards in there. Put like different parameters. Like I have these goals, and let's just say like you can even put in there, if I want to go back to something, I must prove to myself for at least 14 days or 2 weeks if it's actually a good decision before you make the decision. Like even if you really, really, really want to, if you're a person that loves regressing to go, like you like to retract to like push yourself forward, you may also put in there that you like doing that. I'm not saying it's wrong. That just doesn't work for me. The regressing doesn't work for me. I've done it many, 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 many times, more than I can put on this hand and this hand and the 2 feet that I got, right? But I understood that a lot of people do that. And that's where I got the idea from. Again, swaying in the wind, doing what everybody else is doing what I think works. And I was like, wait, that actually doesn't work for me. Every time I regress, because I think it's going to help me, and I think I'm actually like fixing a mistake that I made by leaving. It never works. Not for me. So I had to understand, okay, what else do I do? I set in place the self trust principle that I don't go back to anything that I've left. Because if I actually liked it, I would never leave. Right? So that's one of my things. And so that's how I operate. And your self trust is going to be so much more strong. Like it's not just something you build once, it's literally something that you build forever. Okay? It's almost like compound interest. When you are investing into something and you aren't contributing to it, it's going to grow, but not as fast as if you were to be contributing to it. Same thing as self trust. Regardless or not, you're going to get older, you're going to get wiser, you're going to get smarter, you're going to have more life experience because of age. So, everyone naturally is going to build self trust. But you, my dear, you, my friend, that's watching this video, is going to be so much stronger and better, smarter and wiser than everyone else because you actually are contributing to that self trust. Okay. And that's so funny because self trust, like, like a trust where you can invest in a trust, but this is like a trust that you have not for your finances, but for yourself. So you're putting yourself in a trust, which means nothing can be taken away from it. Like, like a trust, nobody can sue you and take your trust away. Nobody um, can try to claim your trust or the funds in it if anything goes wrong in your life. Like, it's a very secure investment. It's a secure, literally treasure. Like, it's a literal like trust. And self trust is the same way. And if you are just living life and you think you're going to build self trust and wisdom and stuff just by living, you are going to get it, but it's not going to be as good. Like if you're investing in a Roth IRA and you start with $10,000 and you never, I'm going to actually do the math for you. So if you want to do this with me, you can just go to in um, it's called interest calculator. And you can go to the one from edwardjones.com. This one only allows you to do an initial investment, rate of return, and length of investment. So that means your initial investment would be the money you put in. The rate of return is how much percent you're getting per year. And then your length of investment is actually how many years. The one that I personally like better is by nerdwallet.com because it gives you the initial, right? It gives you the rate of return, it gives you the years the same way, but it also gives you the option to contribute. So I'm going to look at it both ways, right? Initial deposit is $10,000 and we don't contribute anything to it. We're just letting this money grow for 50 years at a 7% return. 7% is the average because funds usually grow. Funds usually grow. What was I about to say? Funds, oh, when you're investing in a Roth IRA, the typical rate of return is 10%, inflation 3%. So we usually take 6.57% when doing these calculations on here. And this is the literal website. Do you see our balance of $327,804.14? That's if we put, I'm currently 20. I'm not 20, I'm 23. So when I'm 73, if I had $10,000 in a Roth IRA, I would, by the time I'm 73, have $327,804.14 to go spend upon whatever I want to spend on. So we're going to change the contribution amount. Let's just do $100. No, let's do 400 because I think the average to max out your Roth IRA for the current amount for what it is right now, the annual max is like 7,000, which is $460 per year, I believe. So we're gonna put, I'd say, $10,000 initial, and I'm gonna add and contribute $416 a month, which will let me max out the Roth IRA at $7,000 a year. I'm gonna put that in monthly, same 50 years, same 7%. Do you? I just want to make sure y'all can see. $2,594,201.64. That is a 2.2 million, 2.2 million. Just let that sink in for a second. $2.2 million difference. Okay. So $300,000 is a lot of money. But if you were to contribute to it, it's even better. So everyone else on the planet is like $300,000. They just live life and they go with the flow and they learn through the ebbs and the flows and the valleys and the mountains. And they're learning from life experience. They're learning, they're growing, they're living, they're having children, they're paying bills, they're doing all the things. They're gaining wisdom, right? They're $300,000. They still grew from the 10,000, but they grew to 300,000. When you contribute to it, you are now at $2.6 million. I started with 10, but because I invested and I contributed to my investment, I'm now at 2.2 million. So I'm saying this to say, even with clear, technical, analytical math, because my mind is academically analytical. So I love stuff like that. But it's a clear representation, right? So your self-trust is going to build regardless through life experience. But if you can have the younger, right? Because even in investing, the sooner you do it, the more money you have, right? So the sooner that you can invest in your self-trust through having the self-trust list, you are going to be so much far ahead of other people because everyone's making decisions on the ebbs and flows. No one's contributing to their self-trust. They're not actually actively thinking about it. They're just living life. But when you have a goal and you make decisions and only make decisions that get you to that goal, and you make everything um, run through the filter before you make any decision, it has to go through the filter of your self trust. When I say filter, I mean basically like think of it as a checklist, right? So you have a desire and you're like, I want to go back to this old job. And you go and you're looking at your self trust list and you're like, these are all the things you personally wrote for yourself. And you're checking the boxes, seeing if it passes. And you get to one part that says, you must spend 2 weeks thinking about the detriment of this decision. Um, you must spend 2 weeks thinking about the detriment of this decision. And now you're stopped in your tracks. Now you're stopped in your tracks. And you have to actually think about it. Instead of just making decisions with the wind, you have to think about it. So the self-trust list gets you to stop, gets you to sit, it gets you to pause, and that's really what you want.